Hello.
Oh, we started.
Yes.
Okay, so usually we wait until the end to show you the tea, but guys, let me just show you.
Okay.
Oh, you
Can't
can't
see
see. There's whipped cream. It flattened because I had to go do something in the kitchen. And there's marshmallows in it. But see, oh, look, hold yours up. It says cool dad. Mine says sassy mom. Because we're parents. Okay, now to the regular scheduled programming. Oh, and it's hot cocoa.
Yeah.
With
so today,
marshmallows, whipped cream, and sprinkles.
are we good to go back to the program?
You
Yes,
may
okay.
now teach.
So today we're talking about the Enlightenment, Mrs. Magera. Yes, so we'll be talking about that. So let's begin. So Enlightenment, what was it?
Love that.
So it emerged out of the scientific revolution. That's where it would start, and end with the French Revolution. So it's a period after and towards the end of the scientific revolution to the end of the French Revolution. It came out of this rising middle class that wasn't just nobles and
Who
the
is the
poor.
middle class? Are we the middle class, Jordan?
Probably, yes. We're not super rich and we're not super poor. Yeah, so that's the middle class. Paris was the center, so we talked about the Renaissance coming out of Italy, Reformation coming out of Germany. Well, the Enlightenment is going to come out of France, and Paris is going to be the main thing. And they're searching for new laws and new ways to govern humans, so they're trying to find out new ways to do that. And
Wait,
that's
who's
gonna be
in
looking at
charge right now? Is it still king?
Kings, yes.
Okay, the kings are. Okay, cool.
And this is kind of what the idea behind it is that instead of just using the scientific method for things like science and trying to figure out gravity and things like that in the universe, they're using it to how can we make the best society here on Earth? How can we make a government that's fair? And ideas like that.
Because before it was usually all about religion, correct?
About tradition and religion, yes. So we do this, I'm king because my great-grandfather was king and his great-grandfather was king, and I'm a noble because of that. So we have these ideas based on traditional and customs and religion, that's why it happened. Well, this is now taking that and be like, hey, instead of doing things this way, what's the best way to do it? And a lot of these Enlightenment thinkers weren't against religion. Some of them were, but many of them weren't. But the idea is basically, how can we find out the best way to run society?
So this has nothing to do with like Newton and like Galileo. Nothing to do with them.
No.
Where were they? They were the Renaissance?
Scientific Revolution.
Oh, this is before or after this?
This would be after mainly, yeah.
Okay.
And the idea is that man's basically good and that they should be treated well. We'll talk more about that in a second. Before the Enlightenment, it was built on tradition as a world of hierarchy, privilege, and inequality. So there were some that were ranked higher than others, others were poorer than others. And it was allied with the church. The church was super important. And the supporters of Enlightenment, the people of Enlightenment, are going to challenge this, that they want this to kind of fall apart, that they want their world to be based on things such as reason, understanding, equality, opposed to this privilege. Yeah.
So before this, it's more of like what you were born into is what you were, right? So if you were born as a servant, you were going to be a servant. If you were born as a noble, you were going to be a noble. Is it that sort of thing?
Yeah. Feudalism kind of that we talked about a little bit. This idea that there was different ranks.
And that you couldn't leave your rank.
Exactly.
Unless you got married or something.
I mean, even that is extremely rare. Philosophers, because they wouldn't let you couldn't just be a peasant and marry a noble. That just didn't happen.
Oh.
Sorry, Cinderella.
I was just gonna, oh my word, it's like you went into my brain, that's what I was gonna say.
Wow. 18th century French intellectuals, these were the philosophers or the philosophes of the Enlightenment. They thought they could find truth through reason, so these ideas began to come up. This idea like liberty, people should be free. Progress, the world is getting better, that we can make the world better, we can participate in making the world better. Natural laws, there are some things that are good and reasonable that we should listen to. Things such as human rights, stuff like that. This idea of natural laws, these ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so these ideas start coming up from these French philosophers. But these ideas would spread in these philosophers and these things that they were called the
Is this where
salons.
the pursuit of happiness comes from? Like that everyone has the right to pursue
exactly.
happiness?
Most governments today are rooted in Enlightenment. It's extremely important because the governments that we have all around the world have some sort of root in this movement, this idea that everyone should be equal, everyone should be treated fairly, that and we should elect our leaders. These are all coming out of the Enlightenment.
Because before no one was elected.
Yes. And this the ideas come out of this. The things that we all kind of just accept, right? We see someone like the president doing something bad, or if a president's doing something wrong, we think, hey, he should be prosecuted for that. He shouldn't just get off. He shouldn't be able to do whatever he wants. So that's what.
I just feel like a lot of people in powerful positions don't actually get that.
That's true.
I mean,
but
look at
in
the
general,
American
the idea
government.
is
Look
that
at the Surinamese government. There's
general,
lots of.
Yeah, but in general, we think they should. That's what I'm saying. It's
If
not
you mean
perfect, but
if you took a poll, most people would say that everyone should be taken accounted for what they do.
Yeah. Philosophers, writers, artists, scientists gathered to share their ideas in these salons. These salons where they would meet. Wealthy women in Paris were often the ones who hosted them, and basically they'd all get together, they'd have a meal, and they'd talk about the ideas of their day. Very like high-minded conversations.
Oh.
You wouldn't just be like, hey, so whether outside's cool. No, you discuss things such as, hey, I think that there should be things as freedom of religion. The other guy would be like, well, I don't think there should be freedom of religion, and this is why. And they would argue and debate that.
Did electricity exist at this point yet?
No, it was all lanterns and stuff.
I'm just trying to get a sense of like where we are
No.
in the age.
Think of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, talking candles.
Yeah, and this brings us to Diderot, okay?
Diderot.
Diderot, yes, French guy. He writes this encyclopedia.
He looks cool.
He does.
He just honestly looks like a cool guy. I don't
He
even.
looks like he's winning in life.
I actually feel like some people might wear that jacket these days. Look at that.
Yeah, I don't know about that shirt.
Not the shirt.
Yeah.
It's very pirate-esque, but
Yeah.
I feel like people would try to bring that jacket back.
Yeah. Anyway, so he starts doing this encyclopedia, okay? And so these encyclopedias, he's going to have a bunch of the smartest people he knows write articles for it. And so, like, maybe you write an article on government. And
What's
someone
an
else writes a thing,
encyclopedia, Mr. Magera?
well, it's basically a book that contains all knowledge. I was just hoping that he would get all knowledge and all understanding in it. And so he'd write things such as monkeys, and someone would write an article on monkeys using everything they've learned about it. But the reason why this was such a scandalous book was the idea was that knowledge is coming from this book rather than coming from the Bible or coming from the king or another authority. Instead, that others will contribute. So this encyclopedia is scandalous in the way that it's talking about everyone can contribute, and there's other people that you can find knowledge instead of just going to your village priest, or instead of just going to the king or the noble above you. Instead, you can discover knowledge on your own. And some of the articles also that he writes are kind of like, he writes some on kingship, saying that kings are basically stupid and they should die. So they are a little bit twisted in that way.
So he's very against anarchy. I mean, he's very against
monarchy?
Monarchy.
Yeah, they're against it.
Pro-anarchy.
Well, not anarchy, but pro-reasonable government. Yeah. Anyways, and against the church and stuff like that. So
But he's more like he wants to elect a king, right? He's not against government. He's against that you get to be a king because of what you were born into. Yeah. Okay.
He's very and he's very biased in the way he writes too. He doesn't just write from anyone's perspective. He writes from the people's perspective that he thinks is correct. So that's kind of why. But there is some truth that he's writing this encyclopedia or stuff like that. A lot of
Does
people
he have an education? What makes him?
I don't know about his education, but he's very influential. He had very influential friends. He had a lot of the famous
how does he know
ones.
all this stuff?
Voltaire writes essays. He gets a bunch. He doesn't write the whole thing.
He doesn't write the whole thing. He goes to other people.
And they write a bunch. Yeah, and it'd be banned in a bunch of countries actually. His thing. And,
but that's smart. He went to people who actually know what they're talking about that subject.
Yeah, but a lot of these people were biased or shared his views.
So it was definitely slain.
So a lot of these people would try to then banish these books. A lot of the nobles and kings and religious people would try to ban a lot of these books.
Did everyone know how to read? Even like the low class?
Many people knew how to read. It is becoming more and more popular. Probably not most people knew how to read, but still enough. And once again, the idea was that these ideas would infiltrate society and this would start bringing things down. And so many people were imprisoned and thrown in things like the Bastille, which was like this prison in Paris. So Enlightenment is going forward, but once again, there's a lot of kickback against it. It wasn't like just overnight people were like, oh yes, people should have rights, and our king should be elected. I'm going to agree. No, there was a lot of conflict. There was a very slow movement. And we'll talk about what eventually comes of that. Anyways. Art and literature. So Enlightenment also reflecting the arts, music, and literature. The Baroque architecture comes out, which is kind of like, Baroque is a little bit like a twist off of the classical things, but we won't talk about that. Composers, Mozart, Beethoven, development of novels. First time novels are ever written was during this time. So you would never just go and read anything for fun, but they began to write these. So you get things like Les Miserables and stuff like that. Yeah.
So before that wasn't a thing.
Yeah. So that also enlightened despotism. So some kings and queens of complete control try to take parts of it and leave some of it behind. So what they would do, instead of accepting all of it, like the king should be elected by his people, or that kingship wrong, they take the parts they like. So they reform some of their things. They give some people rights. They give them stuff like that, but they still try to keep the control of the things they want. So kind of selfishly, like trying to protect themselves, but at the same time doing it. So there's three main ones: Frederick, Catherine, and Joseph II of Austria.
So what in the Enlightenment era, where did women stand in this?
So there was different ideas, but that's a good question. Some women were, some thinkers thought women should be equals, and some thinkers came down to the conclusion that women were physically weaker and therefore should
What did
have.
Diderot think?
I do not know. That's a good question. But there was different agreement. Some thought that women should be equal, stuff like that. So impact of enlightenment. So ideas that led to people to challenge long-held ideas of a society. Boy, I did not say that right. That basically that society should have their that they should be more equal. That these things that we have till today, that we have this Declaration of Human Rights, Bill of Rights. These rights that we have all come from the Enlightenment. Political philosophy's Enlightenment inspired the American and French revolutions, and we're going to talk more about that in the future. What basically leads to the U.S. Revolution, rebelling from the British, and the French Revolution as well. This kind of movement towards freer governments, where with elected leaders opposed to absolute monarchies and despotism.
I looked it up. I could not find if Diderot was.
Yeah, I figured that's gonna be a hard thing to find.
Yeah, it was a hard thing to find. I mean, honestly, I feel like Diderot was probably like knocking down a lot of things. So he, how are you supposed to solve everything? But
yeah, that's tough.
Hopefully he was pro-women.
Yeah, but these things would also have lots of other movements. Like they would go into eventually the slavery movement, that ending slavery.
Yeah, I
and stuff
saw
like
that. Do you think that if the Enlightenment era didn't happen, would our world look super different?
Extremely different. Yes, I think it was one of the. I took a whole class in Enlightenment actually when I was in college, and it was super interesting. So it was a whole semester just looking at it, and it was super interesting. All the different ideas, the way they spread their influence. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most important eras we look at.
Wow. I think it's super interesting to look at things, since all of us, everyone who's watching this is usually from like different countries and all that kind of stuff, and to think that like one era or like something big happened affected all of us in all of our countries. It didn't just affect France,
Yeah, and it's still being affected today. Like we never really, if you think about Enlightenment, never really ended, and it just kept going, and our ideas kept changing, and they kept moving and advancing.
Enlightened? You enlightened? Isn't that called like, are you woke?
You woke.
Are you woke?
That's probably what they're learning now. Instead of back in the future, they won't be learning about the Enlightenment. They'll learn about the woke.
Were you woke?
Were you woke?
I wonder what they'll call this like last decade. What they'll call this era, or not? Yeah. This was not it, but you know what I mean.
Our time is running very long.
Sorry.
For Mrs. Magera's
tea time, aka hot cocoa time. So sorry, it'll be really quick. So we were talking about, I think this is super duper interesting, all this Enlightenment thing. I could listen to you talk about it all day, honestly.
Oh, okay, that's an exaggeration. We keep going.
Well, it is really fun. Anyway, so there were like 5 people that were really, really big. There's probably more, but there were some very key people into this. You talked about Diderot, Voltaire, you said him, he was one of them. But another person that was very large in this movement is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I think I said it right.
Yeah, the coolest name is Voltaire, Diderot, Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
That's so cool. You walk in a room and be like, yo, I'm like Hannah. Have you seen Hannah? No, have you seen Jean-Jacques Rousseau?
Yes, he's standing by Voltaire.
We're just Hannah and Jordan.
Or he's standing over there. Voltaire. I'm trying to sing Voltaire. I was trying to make Voltaire sound like over there, but it didn't work.
You could.
Right,
okay, on the real though, look at this. He's kind of handsome for a painting. Not his hand. You guys kind of look alike. Wow. Whoa. You totally look like him.
I don't have like white curly hair.
Comment below. Does he look... Wow. Your faces look... I'm married to Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Alright, sorry.
Sorry. But Jean-Jacques, I can't get over how much you guys look like. Anyway, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was very important in the Enlightenment era, but he was also important for all of you all because he was a huge, advocate, maybe is not the right word, but he was a big reason how people changed how they parented. So before the Enlightenment era, children were treated like adults. So you should just know what is right and you should just know what is wrong. Like, and if you do something wrong, you will be punished.
Adolescence? Is that him?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he named it that, but he is the one who, the very first prominent figure who introduced this idea that you have to be taught reason. That's what he said. That children have to be taught reason. So you have to be taught that you shouldn't touch the burning stove because it will burn you, not punish you for doing it. Or that you shouldn't lie because these are the reasons why it's bad, and these are the bad things that can happen if you lie. Not, oh, you'll be punished because you did this. That he was this whole thing that there was a bridge to becoming a better adult, not automatically assuming. And one of the big reasons why there wasn't this is because of actually religion, is what was said. And that's why there was a lot of child abuse and things like that, but it was just how they were taught. It was just how it was. And he was the one who actually opened this thing of like, no, kids you are not born with this understanding right away, which is a whole other 20-minute video we can make about, like, are you born with the thought of right and wrong? But anyway, his whole thing is that children have to be taught reason. He did lots of really, really cool things.
Yeah.
He wrote the first modern autobiography, which was cool, about himself. And he was also one of the first ones who was against slavery, like vocally, like, no, every man should be free.
Cool.
Yeah.
Besides probably slaves themselves, but
actually, he did write this thing that said no man should be in chains, but then it later said that chains is what make man free, and it was actually people are really confused by it, like, of what he actually meant.
Oh, good tea. All right, that brings us to the end of Mr. and Mrs. Magera. Bring the tea
in history.